former first-round pick in the 2000 NFL Draft, a fierce blocking tight end that played 178 career games over 12 seasons, was your Buccaneers starting tight end from 2005 through 2007, and has been your number one source for everything Buccaneers since he retired in 2012. You're listening to the Walking the Plank podcast with Anthony Becht.
What's up, guys? This is Walking the Plank. I'm Anthony Becht, and great to be with you this morning. Today is the day we preview the upcoming game for the Buccaneers. On my previous podcast, we talked about and we broke down exactly what happened in the football game last week. My thoughts as far as what the Buccaneers did well, what they did bad, and what they're going to have to improve on moving forward. So without further ado, let's just jump in to this week's game. We have the 0-1 Carolina Panthers coming in to Tampa to take on the Bucs. It is a 1 o'clock game on Fox, and the Buccaneers are minus nine point favorites this week in this game. So what do we, or what will we expect in this game with the Carolina Panthers? Well, number one, new coaching staff. Matt Rule, the new head coach, coming from college, had 1 year experience with the Giants as an assistant offensive line coach before he took the Temple job. Had a lot of success a couple years in Temple, revitalizing that program. Bounced over to Baylor, got a big deal. The school was in shambles, if you remember. They had a bunch of jazz going on there, off the field issues that were dealing with players and students on campus, and just a terrible, really, opportunity to take on. But Matt Rule stepped in and took it and turned that team to a perennial power in the Big 12. The one thing I can tell you about Matt Rule is that he preaches a couple things that are going to be evident in this football game. Toughness, accountability, and discipline. Toughness is literally the staple of what he's trying to press to his players on offense, defense, and special teams. And he's got a unique way to really get players to buy in. You know, he's very college-oriented. To me, I didn't see him making that jump to the NFL at one point. He clearly wowed a lot of teams last year when he interviewed with the Jets. He was one of the finals for that job. And then, of course, now with Carolina, the one thing that he does have is the players respect him. He understands what the players want to hear and kind of their mindsets, but he also has a little bit of that Tom Coughlin / Bill Parcells in him. But it's kind of a new age, right? Because you got to kind of blend it and be able to, because that really doesn't work anymore, right? You can't just go in there and just run shop, make everybody miserable, never late. You got to be like 5 minutes there for the meeting. He gets that. He's not doing those kind of things. What he is doing is he's making sure that these players go out there. They have a clean, clear plan. They understand he's going to be loyal and truthful to them. They're always going to know what's going on. And I think you'll see Carolina will respect that. And by their play versus the Raiders last week, even though they lost the game, you can see that they're going to be very disciplined. So offensively, they got a new quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater, who, if you guys know, the Buc fans out there, I was very adamant and high on. If Brady wasn't available, Teddy Bridgewater should be the guy that they try to bring into Tampa to be the quarterback. Well, Carolina gives him a nice little, I believe, 3-year, $60+ million deal, and now he's the guy. So, look, we know how Teddy plays. Everybody saw him in New Orleans when he filled in with Drew Brees. He's a guy that is a little bit better than a game manager. And what I mean by that, game manager gets thrown around out there like, okay, guy's a game manager, quarterback, can't do anything great. He doesn't have a big arm. None of that's really true with Teddy. Game manager to me is a guy that takes care of the football, is clean in the offense and the system and runs it well, and a guy that, is going to put your teams in good circumstances throughout the game. That's what Teddy does. But Teddy can do some other things. Teddy can utilize his legs quite a bit. He's very good moving in and out of the pocket. He is a pure pocket passer, but again, he's got the athleticism to beat you with his legs as well. In the football game, last week versus the Raiders, he played okay, 22 for 34, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, but again, only got sacked 1 time and didn't have any interceptions. So when you play against him, again, you're going to try to confuse him on defense. You're going to do multiple things, but he rarely puts his team in bad situations. So he takes care of the football, which ultimately, in my philosophy of playing football, if the quarterback takes care of the football, then you have a high probability of being in the football game in the fourth quarter. Offensively, for it's kind of the same kind of faces with a few new additions at receiver. Christian McCaffrey obviously is their go-to horse this week. 23 carries, 96 yards, and 2 touchdowns last week versus the Raiders. I thought he was underutilized. I see him being utilized more in this football game, not only in the run game, but in the pass game. Historically versus the Buccaneers, he's played very well. So I expect him to kind of go out there and do some more for this football team. The offense is learning every single week. They're trying to figure out, even though 23 carries is a lot of carries, I expect to amp up his production this week in the ball game, and especially kind of the way they utilize him. I mean, this guy's a weapon in the passing game as well. He's very disruptive, and you really don't shut him down because he's got great speed, he's got great route running ability, he understands how to find holes in the run game and the schemes that they'll run. And he's going to be a guy that's only going to pick up steam and be a much bigger player for them week in and week out as they grow. New receiver that they have, Robbie Anderson. Okay, now I know a lot about Robbie Anderson because he used to play for the Jets, and I cover the Jets as well. For those of you that follow me every single week, the one thing about Robbie Anderson is things that are clear is he's got extremely speed at the receiver position. He can run the go routes. He can take it the distance. If he gets behind the secondary and Teddy has time, he's a huge threat. The one thing that he doesn't do well is intermediate route running. He's not a great dig runner. Dig run is a 10 to 12 yard in route, indigo they call it. He's not a great kind of 5 to 8 yard intermediate kind of guy. He really wants to stick his foot in the line, off the line, run post routes, run go routes, deep comeback routes. Even there, he's not a proficient guy because he lacks really the detail and technique of those routes. Now, is he improving? Was he better at it last year? Yes, but that's not his forte, and that's something to keep an eye on in this football game. Now, DJ Moore, different story. A little more. You can do a lot of different things with him. You can, wide receiver screens, slant routes. You're going to see a lot of different things out of him. He only had 4 catches in the game, but when you look at him and Robbie Anderson, that's a nice combination. Samuels is a guy, again, these receivers, not only are they, they can split out wide, be inside, but they're just versatile players, right? They can do a lot of good things in the quick passing game. A guy like Samuel can get in the backfield and do some things from that standpoint. And those are going to be things that the Buccaneers defense are going to have to worry about. Not a really no real true tight end for this football team. So they don't have a Greg Olsen who's been a buck killer right over the last several years. He's going to be a guy now that that position won't be utilized as much. So defensively for the Buccaneers as they match up against these guys, I mean, listen, the one thing that didn't happen versus the Raiders last week was no QB hits. Okay, so when you get to the point of trying to figure out how do you get to Teddy, is how are you going to devise something to disrupt the quarterback in the backfield? And that's kind of the biggest thing. He was pressured 3 times, but nothing crazy. The Raiders did. They did have 2 half sacks, so they got to him, 1 full time. But again, he's elusive. He's a guy that he's smart. He's got good internal clock. He's not going to hang out in the pocket and just wait for things to get open. He's going to get off things and check it down or protect it, tuck it, and do his thing. So those are going to be huge in the football game. I expect this defensive line to be a little bit more disrupting in the middle. Villavea and the inside players, Golston, these guys were productive, I thought, in the game. I thought up front, even though they didn't get the sacks on Drew Brees last week, there's room for improvement. The team speed is there. JPP kind of, he got active later on in the game. And our speed of the linebacker position is crucial in this game. Devin White, Levante David matched up with inside receivers and/or in particularly Christian McCaffrey. That's going to be an awesome matchup to watch. I mean, you're talking about speed versus speed, a chess match. Very smart offensive player, McCaffrey. Very smart defensive players in White and Levante David. So, those matchups will be big. Secondary for the Bucs. Overall, didn't give up a lot with Thomas. He got nicked up in the game, but, nothing real crazy in the passing game. Jared Cook was kind of the de facto that did some positive things. They don't have a big-time tight end for the Panthers. So when you're talking about the secondary, it's more about just continuing to improve, guys doing the right thing, getting yourselves in a position to make plays. Sean Murphy-Bunting had a really nice game. Jamel Dean is a guy that can improve, got a little lackadaisical in certain situations and gave up a couple plays. But overall, as you look at this passing game for Carolina, I'm not quite sure if you're scared on it. And I think that you'll see Todd Bowles try to drum things up. But Todd knows Teddy Bridgewater well. Todd was with New York as the head coach. If you remember 2 years ago, Teddy was there through training camp and probably was the best guy in Sam Darnold's rookie year. But ultimately, Josh McCown and the rookie they just kind of it wasn't going to work out keeping Teddy, and Teddy went to New Orleans. So, Todd's going to know a little bit about the mentality of Teddy Bridgewater, which I think is a huge advantage when you're talking about figuring out how to defend him, because obviously he knows his ins and outs, seeing him and working through him through the full preseason and a full training camp a couple years ago. So those are some positives as you head in, containing Christian McCaffrey and making sure that he doesn't take the game over. But he always had an alternative weapon. The tight end was always a de facto in this offense, and I think that is going to be a huge deal when you're talking about trying to bracket or shut down a McCaffrey out of the backfield, and of course in the run game, the speed there. I think it's going to be a great matchup trying to tackle him and do some things there. Now, on the flip side, offense, and really the offense is the biggest story when you're talking about the Buccaneers, and I don't think a lot of people were happy about maybe the performance offensively or what they were going to expect. Now, after the first drive, I think that everybody thought that the Buccaneers were going right to the Super Bowl and everything was good, but they did have their bumps and they had their ups and downs. Now, Phil Snow's the defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. Their best player on defense by far is Shaq Thompson, linebacker. He's a guy that has to be accounted for as far as the run game's concerned. He needs to be accounted for. He's excellent with great speed, gets in the backfield. He can get TFLs, can chase plays down on the backside. They're going to play a base. They're going to play a base 4 down, 3 linebacker front. So you're going to see 4 defensive linemen. Short is a guy inside. That's a problem. He's a player that's got good push. He's got good pass rush skills. And then on the outside, who will be matched up versus Tristan Wirth is Brian Burns. Now, Brian Burns is a player out of Florida State, a long player, not real big. He doesn't weigh a lot. He's probably 250-ish, in the 250 range, 260, but he's long arms. He'll be rushing off, as you look at the defense from an offensive perspective, the right side, the left defensive end. So he'll be matched up against Wirth. 2 young players. I think Wirth has the advantage. I really like Tristan's technique. I mean, this guy, when you watch him play and you just kind of watch him on the film, he's very sound. He had a couple ups and downs in the games, but overall played really well. He's physical. He's aggressive. He gets it. There's a drive. There's a want. And, he's a guy to me that's only going to get better week in and week out. And I know they're excited about him in the building just because of the potential of what he can bring to the table, not only from a protection standpoint, but from a run game standpoint as well. Nobody really stands out outside of those players. Secondary rise, Rasul Douglas at the cornerback position. They got a couple guys that are, we call them Jags, just a guy kind of players. But the thing about them is they're well coached. Okay, Phil Snow's the coordinator, comes from college as well. Old school guy, been around the game a long time, very smart. They will be in the right spot. They won't make many mistakes. And that's kind of what you'll see out of this defense. Now, what the Raiders did successfully against them is they had a nice mix with the running back situation. Jacobs had a nice game, almost 100 yards rushing. They had 133 as a team, so a little over 4 yards a rush. As you're looking at the Buccaneers run game, and I talked about this in the last podcast, is they got to change things up. And I get it. They may not, okay? My biggest thing is get the wide receivers out of the interior offensive line. They're always trying to have them dig out safeties and whatever. More than not, they're bringing a guy in there with them, and it's clogging the front up even more. My suggestion is if you're running out of 2 tight end sets, that's fine. Great. That you got a lot of advantages of doing that. But if you're not, get guys spread out, man. I want to see just the 5 linemen blocking potentially 5-on-5 or maybe one more player that's in there because of the fact that you're spread out. But because you're spread out, you cannot bring guys in the box. You have to honor the weapons. So from a run game perspective, those kind of things, when you got a Fournette, who I think should get more carries in this football game, and I think the reason why last week is just bringing him in, trying to get him acclimated, I think you're going to see a little bit more Fournette in the backfield for this football game. I think they can get him warmed up. He's a guy that obviously can create in the run game. He's not a shifty guy, but he can find the hole, get through with power, and then obviously break out to the secondary. He's a hard tackle. He's a hard guy to bring down and tackle. So, Ronald Jones, these guys didn't get off to great starts, but I think it's just, it wasn't because the line wasn't blocking anybody. And I know BA was talking about tight ends didn't block. That's crap. I mean, there was one play the tight ends weren't well, but, Gronkowski was mainly a blocker in this football game. I'd like to see him utilized more as, it's kind of a telltale sign when he's in there. He's blocking. Only 3 targets, 2 real pass routes. One was a forced throw where it was probably looked like up the seam where they were trying to get him the football, but it wasn't open. So, for me, I feel like you got to get a little more creative as far as how you're utilizing Gronk and just don't make him a one kind of trick pony for your team. They tried to throw him a screen, what didn't really work out well for him. So the one positive things now, as you look at Carolina's defense, one thing I noticed is they got nowhere near the quarterback. No quarterback hits, no quarterback pressures, and no sacks. Okay, that's kind of glaring. Usually there's something there. Usually you get one quarterback hit. I mean, minimum 3 or 4 or 5. Nothing as far as getting to the quarterback in that football game. So that's something, especially the fact that they're at home. And they're at home. I'm just talking about from an environment standpoint, not from a fan's perspective. You don't travel, you don't have the things, you're ready to go, and you weren't able to get to Derek Carr in this football game. So that's kind of huge. When you're talking about, what the opportunity can be for Tom Brady. Now, here's what changes in the wrinkles. Now, you're hearing this thing Friday morning, this podcast, and I'm just going on the news that I'm hearing. Okay, Mike Evans, again, still not 100%. It's hard to get the hamstring back perfectly if you're playing on it, right? So he played last week, didn't look the same, didn't look like he had to burst. I thought he was a little bit of a detriment, but, he was helpful because you were able to get 2 defensive pass interferences because guys were draped on him because he wasn't able to separate as much. So those were positives. I mentioned in the podcast last week, Scotty Miller played a big part. He's becoming at least in one game, a favorite of Brady, which, again, I'm fine with. I have no problem with that. Your best player, though, all right, let's not make no mistake as far as who you're trying to get the ball to is Godwin. Now, Godwin's been dealing with some stuff. Little injuries here and there, nicks and things, but he was still the fastest guy on the field. And on film, last week, Brady's going to find out that he was a guy. Now, here's the problem. He's in the concussion protocol. And guys play if they're in the concussion protocol. It doesn't mean they're automatically out for the game. But he didn't enter the protocol early on. Okay, it didn't happen on Monday morning or after the game. It became later into the week. So to me, that's a telltale sign he may not be available for this game. And if that's the case, okay, now you're down a guy. Okay, so that means, Scotty Miller's going to get a little more play on the outside, which is okay. but Mike Evans is nicked up now. So you can do some things defensively to take that back. I don't know if you need to get two guys bracketing Mike Evans. You might slide some people or whatever, but you're not gonna double Miller, but you're gonna find ways to kind of eliminate him from the game. So I think football from an offensive perspective, what will be the adjustment for them? Okay, is it now two tight end sets where Gronk is actually going out on routes with OJ? OJ was main route runner. I mean, he's fast, he's smooth. He's the guy you clearly see on out of the tight end position when he runs routes, and that's exciting because he's got great speed. Made some nice catches, had a touchdown catch. But I mean, Gronk is a guy when you watch him run side by side of OJ, it doesn't look right. You're like, Gronk is slow. But the thing about Gronk is very similar to Jason Witten. Jason Witten is a guy that doesn't look like he's fast coming off the line of scrimmage, but he understands the intricacies of getting open, finding spaces, the technique. Whether you're running routes off of safety, you're running the routes off the linebackers, he understands holes and openings in the defense. He's got great feel, and also the seam routes, getting himself in a position to make play in those crossing routes, which he's been so devastating during his career with the Patriots. How do you get creative, though, this week with him? I don't want to see him be the knucklehead that's blocking all week. Cam Brate really not a factor, didn't play much. He looks like the odd man out in certain situations. But, again, who's the other guy that's going to step up? Justin Watson's going to probably get some opportunities in this game if Godwin's down. Mike Evans, if he when he plays, he's not going to be 100%. Tom's going to have as much as information he's going to get from the film that he's going to say, okay, this, and this was good. We got to go to this. He may not have his entire players at his disposal, but still enough weapons to get the job done. But it does even the playing field. Now, I'm not a big fan of the 9-point favorite at home. All right, if I were a betting man and I put money on this game right now and put my money on the points, I'll take those 9 points for Carolina. Do I see the Buccaneers as a better team than Carolina? Absolutely. I see the Buccaneers winning this game. I see them bouncing back. But I'll tell you, there are factors now that keep this game a lot closer. So the little things, the knucklehead mistakes that we saw the Buccaneers make last week on special teams, okay, understanding when to catch a kickoff and not to go back and holding on to the ball, not getting kicks blocked, these things are going to rear their ugly head again for this football team if they don't take care and handle those things. Penalties got to get cut down. Got to be more disciplined across the board, offensively and defensively, so you don't give this team free yards, better field position. Like I said, going back to Carolina offense, they're going to be efficient. All right, they're kind of a move the sticks offense. They can wean on you on a 10, 12-play drive because they got backs that can get you in third and short and make it easy for the quarterback to move the chains. And Matt Rule would love to do that versus Tom Brady's offense. Okay, he'd love to keep them off the field and see and make them come on the field with not the continuity and the persistence that you would see a normal team come in if you were consistently getting the team off. So the defense has to be great this week on getting themselves in third and long situations and forcing Teddy with some of these receivers to make plays down the field where, like I said, Robbie Anderson, big play guy, but if he needs 7 or 6 yards, his route combinations, his ability to get open, even though he's a fast player, it kind of shrinks down. So those will be things that'll be key to watching the game. Finding a way to get to Teddy, at least get hits on him. I really thought it was amazing that he took no sacks. Excuse me, he was sacked one time and only got hit 3 times. I mean, I feel like the defense and what Todd's going to do, he's going to find ways to get in there and make things happen because you just got to get quarterbacks disrupted occasionally. It doesn't have to be a play-by-play deal. He's not. Teddy's not going to come out and throw for 350 on you. That's not going to be the game plan for Carolina. They're going to try to keep this thing as even keel as possible because 34 passes and 30 rushes last week is balanced. They want balance, and if they're not going to force the issue because they get a couple long passes. All right, they're going to live and die in field position. They're going to play the game smart, and they want to get the game to the fourth quarter, and they feel like with their discipline and the way they're playing, and this is the way they're being coached, that if they're in the game in the fourth quarter, they can find ways to win. Buccaneers, I think, need to find ways to take this game over early on. And again, if you're down some guys offensively, what will be the kind of the change up in the routine? How will the running game get sparked? This team has to find a way to run the football. Offensive line is good enough to make blocks. All right, they got good enough backs to make some hay in the run game. They got to change things up. All right, I know they're working on things in training camp and they got their go-to runs, but you know what, man? Stuff's predictable. You got to be able to move it. You got a veteran team up front. Okay, Donovan Smith. A lot of people are down on Donovan, and look, there's no bigger frustrated Buck fan than myself watching him play week to week because I see the potential, but he never seems to want to go out there and just grapple it and be the guy. But again, up front, I don't see any problems on the edge. Okay, where this should be an issue. So as I look at these things. I want to be sure to let you guys know that you're not going to see Donovan Knapp just flop around, and the fact that Wirfs is over there doing his job at a rookie level, okay, as a rookie and doing it at a high level and not giving up and not doing these things wrong. Clearly, if you have any competitive nature about yourself, which I hope Donovan Smith has, he's going to obviously want to make sure that being the heavy money guy, he wants to go out there and play ball properly. So, tight end evolution, right? I only saw kind of one guy in the mix, especially if it was two tight end sets, like Gronk. Like, how do you utilize Gronk? I mean, what's his packages? Like, what are you doing for him? Gronk on the screen. I would have gave OJ the screen. Gronk's not a fast guy. I just, I don't know if a screen's something. I almost feel like you're trying to do stuff for him. Where, I think Brady now needs to kind of take the lead on that and say, look, these are the things we need to kind of try to utilize with him. And some of those things OJ's going to be a lot better at because he's got better speed. But again, experience, technique, hands, those are things that Gronk brings to the table that are just so valuable, so important, especially in the red zone. So, look for those things in the game for sure. To see how the Buccaneers kind of get those things going. So maybe down one of your best players on offense, Chris Godwin. That'll be close, big story to follow in this football game. There's some serious advantages defensively for the Buccaneers because of the lack of firepower on the outside. You can limit what your scheme is and really hone into the really good players, which is Christian McCaffrey. You must let somebody else beat you. And don't let Christian go off and have 100 receiving yards, 100 rushing yards, and then all of a sudden he's a fantasy, specialist for the week and embarrasses you because of it. That's not the process that the Buccaneers want to get into. So, like the Buccaneers this week, I think they got enough. Obviously, if Chris is down, it's going to be it could be a tight game, but I do think Carolina covers this deal. But Buccaneers should be, handle this game as long as they don't make mistakes. And then the evolution of Tom Brady. Tom, one more game under his belt, getting a feel for the play calls. Okay, I'm sure he wasn't happy about getting called out after the game when Coach said he did something wrong, and it ended up being Mike Evans and not him. I think a good rule of thought here is let's watch the film first and see what happened. And then you go from there. It's easy to get emotional after a game, player, coach, and start blabbering things. But, Tom's not going to be used to that because he ain't saying any of those things, and he's not used to Belichick, diving into, in particular plays or if guys were blocking. And you can't dictate what happens in a game until you actually see the film. So I expect to see a better team if you eliminate the turnovers and the muffs on special teams. The Buccaneers did enough to win that game last week, and they'll sure as hell do enough to be able to win the game this week because Carolina is not the Saints. So we'll see how it goes. That's kind of how I see it this week, guys. I expect the Bucs to bounce back. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Godwin can play in this football game. Probably going to be a game-time decision, but if anything, he's not getting any work this week with the quarterback, so that to me is a bit alarming. When you're talking about, being in the concussion protocol later on in the week, not on Monday. So, again, good luck this week to the Bucs fans. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. Hopefully this gives you a better idea of what to see, what to expect, and what I think will be the best way that the Buccaneers can win this football game. Subscribe, like, anything you do, whatever platform you find this on. I appreciate it. Hey, if you want to shoot me a review, we'd love those 5-star reviews. That would be great. But I'm going to try to bring you something every single week, guys. But again, Bucs at home, 1 o'clock, taking on Panthers, divisional game. I expect a bounce-back game for the Buccaneers. My name's Anthony Becht. This is the Walking the Plank podcast. I will see you Tuesday morning, breaking it down, everything that went on, watching the film, and letting you know exactly what happened in the Bucs game against the Panthers. Have a good week.
You've been listening to Walking the Plank with Anthony Becht. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play to get new, fresh weekly episodes. For more, give us a follow on Twitter at Anthony_Becht, on Facebook at The Anthony Becht, or visit our website at anthonybecht.com. Until next time, go Bucs!